I just really try to empower my clients about this phase of life. I think a lot of women enter it like, oh no, this is happening to me. But I find, like you were saying, it's like the best time of our life. This is a moment of strength, boundaries, empowerment, like you're learning who you are, what you can eat, what your body is capable of. There's so much good here. And I
Mm.
think that once you find that rhythm and that balance within yourself, I mean, like you become limitless. It's just amazing.
Welcome to Mind, Body, Spirit, Food. I'm Nicki Sizemore, and in this podcast, we explore how food connects us and sometimes disconnects us to our minds, bodies, spirits, the earth, and our communities. This is a space dedicated to bringing more presence, intention, ease, and joy into the process of feeding ourselves. Let's dive in. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the show. So, when you leave a conversation feeling uplifted and inspired and empowered, that's exactly how I felt after today's conversation with registered dietitian and functional medicine practitioner Samantha Rigoli. Today, we are diving into perimenopause and menopause, and Sam has such a beautiful way of helping to support us during this time. And by the way, as I mentioned in this episode, this is for all of the listeners out there, not just the women who might be coming up against this either currently or in the next couple of years. I will say my husband just listened to an episode on menopause so that he can support my journey, which I thought was so cool. So to all you guys out there, like if you're listening, we love you. Sam is the founder of Healthy to the Core NYC. She's been helping women transform their health for nearly 20 years. She specializes in gut health and hormones, and she has a deep focus on supporting women during perimenopause. We cover so much ground in this episode, from the common and not so common symptoms of perimenopause, and just wait till you hear my experience with this, to how these hormonal shifts can affect the way we feel, but also affect the rhythm of our lives. And we dive into how nutrition can support us during this time in a way that is non dogmatic. But there are some core tips that I found super helpful. And what I really love is that it's mostly about what we can add in, what nutrients we can add in, what meals we can add in, what levels of support we can add in. It's really about more, which I think is such a beautiful theme about this transitional time in our lives, which, as we get into, can feel so good and so freeing because it really is a time for us to connect so deeply to ourselves. And we get real about the grief that comes along with that and how we can maybe mitigate or at least get through those times that feel hard or weird or totally foreign. I loved this conversation. We had some issues with recording. I hope that my incredible editor, Tommy, will fix all of that for you so you won't hear any of the glitches. But again, this was a conversation that so uplifted me. I hope it uplifts you too. If you find it helpful, please let me know. Please share the episode with your people. You can hop over to the newsletter on Substack and like it there and share it there. That goes a long way in supporting this work. Speaking of the newsletter, if you're not a subscriber yet, please head over and subscribe. I share weekly brand new recipes. I dive deeper into some of these topics. And if you become a paid subscriber, just a few bucks a month, you make all of this work happen. Could not happen without community support. As you'll notice, there are no ads in this podcast. It's just you and me making this happen. So I'm so grateful for all of you paid subscribers. And last but not least, my Mind, Body, Spirit, Food cookbook is now available at bookstores nationwide. You can also find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all of the big places. And I will link to it if you want to check that out. Thank you so much for being here. Without further ado, let's get into the show. Okay, well, welcome, Sam. I am so thrilled to have you on the show.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me. This is an amazing chance to chat with you. So excited.
Yes, it is an amazing chance for me to chat with you as well. And I'm going to start. There's so many questions I want to ask you, but I'm going to start by asking you the first question I ask all of my guests so people can get to know you a little bit. And that is, what is your cultural upbringing and how has that influenced your relationship to food?
I love this question. I love that you start with this because this is something that I feel like is the thread that runs through my whole practice. It's so deep in my practice and how I run my business and everything. But my family is I'm Jewish and my mom was born in Argentina and her parents were Greek, so and Holocaust survivors. So food
Mm,
was never just food, right? It was like our
mm,
love language. It's like our connection, it's our survival, it's our like I said, love language. It's just our identity, really. So my mom was always cooking and always, and still to this day, she'll still show up. It's the way she expresses her love, right? And that's deeply been instilled in me for sure. So she'll show up in my house with trays of spanakopita or chicken soup
mm.
and all the things. So she was always just cooking and nourishing our friends and family, and we always had guests over. And I feel like that really trickled down to my kids too. Now they're into it and they feel that connection. So it's really
Mm.
like nice. They love to cook for friends and family and stuff. But growing up, my mom was she was cooking and going to the farm and getting organic chickens before it was even a thing. Like, she was ahead of her time. So she was
Yeah.
always really into, healthy cooking and feeding us really good food. She was really concerned about where the food was coming from and all that. So at the time, I didn't really appreciate it. We were the family that I always had healthy lunches and we gave out raisins and pennies for Halloween. It was mortifying at the time. But now I'm like, oh, thank you, it's the best. And even both my parents worked, so I was always, like, cooking dinner for the family or getting
Mm.
things ready, but it really shaped how I see food and how I think about feeding and nourishing and working with my clients, to be honest. So
It's so interesting because that childhood experience, I'm sure, played into your decision to become a dietitian, but I'd love to hear about that journey. What brought you there?
yeah, so like I said, I didn't really appreciate the good food when I was younger, but once I got to college and started cooking and working on organic farms and learning more about it, all my friends and I would just start really getting into food. And that's when I really had that like aha moment where I made that connection where like food actually changes how you feel, not just
Mm,
how you look or, it's not just for sustenance. It's really like it's not just for fuel. It's really to like nourish you and make you feel good in so many ways. And then it was a few years after college, I was working in a holistic healing center and I was introduced to an integrative nutrition program and that just totally changed the trajectory of my life. So I went
mm,
down the integrative nutrition path and I loved it, fell in love with it. It was like who I realized I was. It was like part of me. It's like,
mm.
when you find the thing that just clicks, just felt
Yeah.
right. And then I wanted more. So I wanted to get more of the science and the deeper education in that field. So I became a dietitian. And then I went into private practice. I started seeing clients and really helping a lot of people. I was sort of helping everyone. I was helping people with all sorts of nutrition related illnesses. And I started to quickly realize that there were more women coming to me in this stage of my life too. My kids were getting older. I started sort of honing in on who I wanted
Mm,
to work with and what I was seeing. And I realized I was seeing a lot of women with a lot of deeper issues. So thyroid imbalances and gut issues and chronic fatigue, hormone imbalances. And they had tried so many things, and my traditional ways of working with people from my dietitian days wasn't really doing it the same way. I wanted more deeper understanding of what was happening with them. I wanted to do more testing and like really dive in a little bit. So I went down this path of functional nutrition and did more training in that. And for anyone who's not familiar, do you know about functional nutrition?
I would love for you to explain it for those who might not know.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a different way to look at it. It's really about looking at the body as a whole system. instead of like isolated parts, or in conventional medicine, in comparison, conventional medicine, we look at the symptom and we treat it. We treat that one symptom, right? But this is more looking at it like holistically and getting down to the bottom of it and looking at all the systems together and how they connect. So instead of saying you have a thyroid issue or you have gut issues, and treating those separately, it's sort of
Mm.
putting them together and looking at where this is coming from and the root cause.
I love that. I love this idea of coherence. I've been thinking about that a lot in my own body. I mean, we grew up, I know you and I are probably of the similar generation. We grew up really with this mechanical way of viewing the body and this mechanized version of parts that are separate, and you treat these parts. And in the past several years, through the movement practices I do and just through my own deep dive into what nourishes me, it's this understanding that we are this coherent whole and that everything influences everything. My husband, just before I came up here, he's like, I don't know why, but every time I go for a run, my shoulder really hurts. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's probably compensating for something. And we got into this whole discussion, and he was like blown away. And I was like, this is so obvious. But he was still thinking of like the shoulder is this isolated thing and it has nothing to do with my legs that are running or my back. And it's like, no, these things are all connected to one
Your
another.
hips and your spine and the way you're
Yeah.
planting your
Yes.
feet and the whole thing. I know.
Yes.
Once you
Well,
start seeing it like that, you can't unsee it. Now you know,
yeah.
you know?
Yes. Well, I invited you on today because obviously, I think for any woman who's listening, perimenopause and menopause, these are hot topics right now. And I want to say finally, because they've been
Finally.
largely ignored in the discourse. A little selfishly, I just turned 45 this week. I have not yet experienced symptoms of this, but I know that it's all coming. And so I would love to dive into that today. And you know my work, which I love. And so my focus is really non dogmatic. And that's why I love your work, because your work feels empowering and not, oh, what is the word? Like dictatorship, like do this, do this. I can't even go near that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think my first question for you, I do feel like most people listening who are going to continue on with this fun conversation, and I promise you, like my husband just listened to an episode on menopause. So I feel like for the men listening, like this actually could be really fascinating and really interesting, not just for yourself, but for the women that you support in your life. But what are maybe some of the symptoms? Some of them are pretty obvious, like, but I think there's also probably maybe some not so obvious symptoms for when a female body starts to hit this cycle of life. So I don't know, throw them at me.
Yeah, so the symptoms, I mean, the big ones that I see are, it's perimenopause is tricky too because you don't know that it's coming out. It could be it's not like a switch either, it could
Mm,
be like 10 years before menopause, or it could happen in your 30s or 40s, or if it could, or you might not experience it at all, or you could have severe symptoms. So it's very individualized, but it typically starts when what's happening, I guess I should start there, is what's happening is our hormones are starting to fluctuate. So perimenopause is before menopause, just to clarify. And it's the time when our estrogen and progesterone start to fluctuate dramatically. So it's not like they're dropping off. It's like they're fluctuating really high sometimes and then really low. And it's in those fluctuations where we feel the most symptoms. So typically, progesterone will start to decline first, and that is like our soothing, sleep calming hormone. And it's really important. So you might start to feel a little new onset of anxiety, which is what happened to me, right? And some of my clients, I didn't realize I was in perimenopause. Suddenly I was like, why do I feel this way? It's so
mm,
it's stabilizing or shocking sometimes. You're just like, this isn't who I am. I've never experienced this in my life. Or you're just crashing in the afternoon and you suddenly just can't function. Your brain fog is a big one. Some women do get hot flashes too, and that's a really common one, but not always right away. So that's why sometimes diagnosing perimenopause can be confusing because you're like, should I be having hot flashes or, you know, or waking up at 2 to 4 a.m.? That's a big one. That's like a big signal that it's sort of starting. and then some cravings, trouble focusing, weight gain around your midsection that when you've been doing everything the same as you've always been doing. And this is what I hear a lot. Like women come to me all the time, like, I haven't changed anything. In fact, I'm eating healthier. And suddenly I feel worse. I feel terrible. And I don't know why. So that's
Mm.
what a lot of it comes from, but what it really stems to, and I love to bring it back to the food, is that we've lost this connection to what we're eating and how it makes us feel too, because a
Mm.
lot of the things done in perimenopause, this we've lost our connection. So we think, oh my God, I'm gaining weight. So we push harder and we double down and we start exercising more. And that actually makes things worse. And so you think I'm doing everything right.
Right.
Ah,
I just have to name this because as you're
yeah.
sharing, I'm like, girl, you think you haven't started this yet? Who are you fooling? I've so started it. It's so interesting too, because this past year, I went through this bout of mast cell hypersensitivity. And I feel convinced that the reason this was brought on, there were a few reasons, but I'm convinced that my hormones did play a part. And I think it is
Yeah.
because my hormones are starting to fluctuate. And it was such an annoying journey. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it in that way, but as I've gotten through it, it has been the biggest teacher. And it really has become a learning ground for me with perimenopause because I have never paid so much attention in my life to my levels of stress and to my cortisol levels. And so I really want to talk about that. And I have noticed for myself that my blood sugar is so closely correlated to the cortisol stress levels in my body. And so this journey has really been an invitation for me to pay attention to my blood sugar levels, to feel super grounded and nourished. Because when I start to feel like that hungry, like, like you've gone too long, that's when I start to get itchy. I literally will start to get itchy. And it's like, wow, that's a gift because this is only going to become more and more important as I get older and really get more in depth in this cycle. But can you speak to all of this?
Yes, I love that you're saying this because you're becoming aware, you're tuning in. And this is, like you said, the gift of perimenopause, these changes. And, a lot of women are like, I'm doing everything the same. And they try to keep doing the same, but it's a shift. It's like you have to shift and say, okay, things are changing. And how do I now feed myself? So once we start to get that connection to food and what's happening and having them tune in and realize that what they're eating is actually impacting or how they're eating or when they're eating
Mm,
or the timing, all the things are connected, then they start to say, I hear things all the time like, oh, when I eat that, my energy is more stable. Or if I skip a meal, I crap. Like then there starts to
mhm.
become this connection to like when I have more protein in the morning, I don't crave sugar all after, things like that. But blood sugar in particular is really important too at this phase because as our estrogen drops, estrogen's sort of like the buffer. It kind of helps with the metabolizing our glucose. And so we lose that buffer. We become a little bit more insulin resistant. And so then, it spirals the whole thing.
So, when we think of nutrition during this cycle and we want to, start to balance that stress response and keep ourselves really grounded, what is some of the advice that you give your clients from, I guess? What I want to maybe emphasize is that I'm sure that I know, of course, we know every single body is so unique and specific. So, when you work with people, you have that luxury of diving into what their particular form and beautiful body needs. But I do think there are probably some generalized suggestions that you can offer when it comes to how we can support ourselves within the lens of nutrition during this time.
Yeah. So I do like to start with keeping it simple. I really emphasize like this is not about restriction or certain rules or anything. It's sort of like a lot of women come to me overwhelmed and confused. And where do I start and what do I do? But, really starting with being really consistent. Our bodies really like consistency, right? So eating regularly and not skipping meals, starting with breakfast, honestly, making sure we are getting enough protein. And I know protein is the big topic now, but it really does make a difference in how our bodies work, how we stabilize our blood sugar, how we have more energy throughout the day without the dips and spikes and crashes, and also for muscle building and all that. Prioritizing breakfast within an hour or two of waking up really can help. So I start with a lot of women who say, I'm just not hungry in the morning. Or what happens is also a lot of times I see that my clients will come to me and they're like, I just don't feel hungry. I just, graze a little and then I have a little light lunch and then I eat dinner and I have a great healthy dinner. So I feel good, but I don't know what's happening. But actually, front loading your day, giving your body that morning stability of breakfast, like fiber and protein in the morning, and really getting consistent with it instead of having coffee on an empty stomach and not drinking water and then you spike your cortisol higher and then it continues to perpetuate that feeling of anxiety or crashes or the up and down. Other things that I do work on in terms of like habits and lifestyle, really prioritizing sleep. I mean, I
Mm,
can't stress sleep enough. That's like a main thing that we do work on. And also morning sunlight. So getting like sunlight on your eyes first thing in the morning if it's possible, but as close to the morning as you can, getting outside for a walk, just letting the light hit your retinas, and it just triggers your circadian rhythm. And I tell my clients this every day. The way you start your day has a huge impact on the way you end your day. And I see this time and time again, what you put in your body or how you wake up, if you're reaching for your phone immediately or you're just, eating something that isn't supporting your metabolic needs, then you're just, it just continues throughout the day. It's hard to
mm.
correct that after.
Yeah, and I think that we do I mean, even for me, I'm not a breakfast person at all. In the framework of human design, I don't know if you're into human design at all, and this is just an interesting
Yeah.
way to get out of the conditioning of what we're taught, but my digestion, I'm an indirect light eater, which means, according to this framework, I digest best at night, and I fully feel this in my body, like, I can't go to sleep. Everyone will tell you, like, don't go to sleep with food in your system. I'm like, no, I will not sleep. I need some protein. I need some food in my belly to sleep through the night. But also, with this journey that I've been on with the mast skin cell hypersensitivity, I have had to
Mhm.
start eating breakfast. It's like, ugh, like I don't like my body doesn't really want to, but the more I do it, the more stable I feel. Like I really had to kind of force myself. And this is where intuitive eating gets tricky. And I'm always like, intuitive eating is not as straightforward as it sounds because I would have been like, my body doesn't want it. No. But since I was like forced into it, thinking, okay, I will try anything at this point, and started to do breakfast, I've realized that it does have an impact and it makes me feel like I was talking to a friend about this that, oof, like it makes me like, yeah, like my roots are there. I'm stable. I've got this. Instead of like floating,
Exactly.
I don't want to be a floater
All the
anymore.
day. Seriously. I'm glad you said that because a lot of times I'll get pushback and my clients are like, no, I'm not hungry at all. I'm like, okay, slowly we'll just sort of work on it. And once they do, I mean, I can't even tell you how many times it's changed everything. It just changes the way that they feel, their mood, their mental state too. Really
Yeah.
does change
And
things.
I know that, so many women who one of my best friends, we I was just at dinner earlier this week and she's like, this belly, like, where is it coming from? And I'm like, at least from the research I've done, a lot of that has to do with estrogen clearance. Do you know anything? I mean, I don't know if this is something that you're versed in.
Yeah, so I do a lot of like gut testing, and so I do the GI map and stool testing and stuff in my practice. So I do talk about this, and We have something in our gut called the estrobolome. So this is a collection of bacteria in our gut that help us to metabolize and excrete estrogen. So we really love estrogen. We need estrogen, right? We have estrogen receptors all over our body. It's so beneficial to everything. That's why we feel it as it's declining. But if we get this imbalance and we get this high level of beta glucuronidase, which is like the enzyme that helps clear, we can feel some estrogen dominance. Or if we're not having regular bowel movements, right? We need so other things that are impacted is your gut, obviously. So your gut things will slow down, right? So maybe we're feeling a little more constipated than usual, or not having the same consistent bowel movements. We can get a little dysbiosis in the gut, and that can impact our estrogen clearance for sure. And then we can feel it in
Mm,
different ways. But the weight gain around the belly, a lot of times it could be stress related. It could be
mm,
estrogen, the changes. It could be, not a lot of times. I know this sounds counterintuitive, but just not eating enough. So, like I was saying, women double
mm,
down and they start working out and doing these intense workouts, and that can exacerbate your already less resilient nervous system, your fragile nervous system. And then you're doing these high intensity workouts, eating less because you think you're gaining weight from too much food, but you actually need more food, more protein, more fiber, more of the nutrients. So it's about making that
mm.
shift and taking a step back and looking at your signs and symptoms and seeing what is actually happening there. This really makes a big
I l
difference.
I love that.
And I'm glad you felt the benefits of breakfast. And
Yes. Well, also talking about exercise and movement, I love that you brought this up. I was talking to a woman a
yeah,
few weeks ago who was telling me she's older, she's 55, she's through menopause, but she was telling me that she used to be a long distance runner. And I'm saying this out loud, not to scare anybody, not to have any influence on what you and your beautiful body is going to go through. I am going to say this
right,
because
right,
she
right.
was pushing herself and she's always been a runner. And so she was pushing herself on these longer and longer runs because her body was changing and she was freaking out and she was trying to control it. And through that
Control.
control, she was making it worse. And she had to actually, for her system, switch to a much gentler form of exercise and switch to walking because that was actually, I love that you brought up the nervous system. I don't know the science behind what she was experiencing, but she said in her lived experience for her, that was stressing her system out. And she didn't even realize that that was happening. But once she had this awareness with the doctor, she moved to gentler forms of movement and everything started to clear. And I was like, gosh, that's so fascinating.
It's amazing. I know. It happens so much more. And so, yeah, I like to recommend a balance, right? I mean, it's not like you have to do no cardio or hit classes if you love them and enjoy them and feel great doing them. It's just how often, right? If you are
Mhm.
already experiencing symptoms of your nervous system, like doing it more gently or doing it fewer days of the week, and then also mixing in more restorative classes or giving yourself time and space for rest and recovery is really where you gain a lot of that. You help heal your nervous system a lot. So it's really
Mm.
important to have.
I think that nutrition, we touched on protein and the importance of protein, the importance of fiber. And I don't want to get too granular about this, but I do think it might be interesting for listeners to be like, okay, like, but how, like, what, like, how do I? It seems like so much protein I have to eat, or whatever the case may be. But do you have like some gentle recommendations for what kind? I mean, again, I'm even going to say this with such a qualifier because what kind of protein you eat is going to depend on what feels good in your body. Listener, please hear that.
That.
But I do want to hear
Yeah.
from you, for some of us who might be like, okay, I do want to up my protein. What are some ways I could do that and up my fiber too? Because I can recognize that both are going to be important during this season of life.
I mean, it is very individualized. So it's hard to say.
Mm,
I don't like to just like put out because it changes for, from person to person, but do starting your day, I mean, there's a general recommendation of like, you know, fiber in the morning is really helpful to get the bowels moving and feed the good bacteria. So complex carbohydrates, so some rolled oats or things like that, beans and whole grains and things. And then also protein, combining it with protein, right? So if you combine the two, it's always a good way to get more longer, more sustainable energy. So, starting with 2 or 3 eggs, and it feels like more than you would actually think to eat, but I will tell you from my experience that you probably need to do more. As women, I think we tend to just not eat as much protein. It's just like something I see this commonly as a common thread. So just kind of like just being mindful of, do I have protein on my plate? Do I have complex carbohydrates like fibers and leafy greens and a mix of food and carbohydrates on my plate? So all of the carbohydrates and non-starchy vegetables, I guess. But leafy greens, carbs, starches, and proteins is like the balance to really keep you throughout the day. Because I do hear a lot, people will say, well, I eat a great breakfast or I really eat a great balanced dinner, but lunch I'm just kind of grazing through or something. Or there's always one meal, that they're skipping. So sometimes if you're feeling a little bit imbalanced in the evening or crashing at 3 or 4, look at what you're starting your day with and also the patterns that you're doing, right? So I like to really talk about the rhythm of the day. So we do like the core reset rhythm and the daily rhythm. So what your morning looks like, your midday and your evening, and then your wind down, like how your whole day kind of fits together. And I think sometimes that's an
Mm.
easier way to look at it and just kind of try to get those main food groups throughout the day so that it's a little bit more
Mm.
evenly dispersed.
There's
Feel.
something you just said about about the rhythm of the day. I think there's something really, really beautiful there, at least for the way my brain works and how visual I'm such a seer. But even just thinking about the
Yes.
rhythm of my day and making my day feel smooth and steady. As I get older, and by the way, I love getting older, but this sense of equilibrium,
Right.
equanimity. These are the things that feel really good. I'm done with the swings, right? Like the highs and the lows. Like I just want to be coasting in the middle.
Yes, I think that a lot of us come from the state of we've been taught or see I hear this often too is, a lot of like food is about control or restriction or this and that, but it's really about learning how to find the balance within all of it, right? There's not really foods that
Mhm.
we shouldn't be eating. I mean, sure, maybe some highly processed, of course, foods, but for the most part, we want to eat a diverse diet. We want to fill our guts with we're meant to eat diverse amount of foods and be exposed to different things to get different nutrients from all of them. So that's really important. And I just really try to empower my clients about this phase of life. I think a lot of women enter it like, oh no, this is happening to me. But I find, like you were saying, it's like the best time of our life. This is a moment of strength, boundaries, empowerment, like learning who you are, what you can eat, what your body is capable of. There's so much good here. And I
Mm.
think that once you find that rhythm and that balance within yourself, I mean, like you become limitless. It's just amazing. It's amazing to feel and to witness with my clients. And it's really nice.
I love all of that. And this morning, just this morning, I was writing about change. And we're recording this the week of my birthday. Like I said, I turned 45 this week. And I found that on my birthday and the night before, while it was celebratory and really beautiful. So while I love this stage of life, and I can feel the joy in kind of not caring anymore about all of the bullshit that we cared about as kids and as adults, but the sense of getting to know oneself and feeling powerful and strong and rebellious in that sovereignty. I also there is a sense of grief that has come with it for me, and I think for a lot of women I know, because as we talked about earlier, you said this is a time of life where we have to get comfortable with change. And change is not easy. Change is hard, and I just want people to know that, like, yes, this is a beautiful time and let's embrace it, and it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel the grief of letting go of all of these past identities that we no longer need, but that have served us well or well enough until this point. And I think we need to give ourselves some space and time and quiet to grieve that and to understand that that's part of this process too, and that change is great. Change is the only constant in life. I literally wrote that this morning. I'm like, change is the only constant in life, blah, blah, blah. Like, I know, I get it, but, and it doesn't make it easier sometimes. We still,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm wondering if there are practices that you have personally or for your clients that help you navigate those feelings, those emotions that come up. And I think these emotions are exacerbated by the hormonal flux that we're experiencing as well.
Yeah. Oh, it's one of the hardest transitions, right? It's like suddenly who we were is completely different. The way we feel about ourselves, the way we think about ourselves, the way we're reacting to our family. Sometimes we become almost unrecognizable. It's like we're like, who was that? That's not me, you know? It is a hard transition for sure. This change is there's nothing easy about it. And there are some things that you can do to maybe just make it a little gentler in some ways. I mean, there are still for some women, it just becomes really difficult, really unbearable, but it does continue to change. And if you've ever read or heard of Lisa Mosconi, she's this neuroscientist, and she actually studies brains of women in puberty and perimenopause and postpartum and menopause. And you could actually see the brain, the changes in the brain during these stages of life. Like we're really having this recalibration of our brains, of our whole
Mm.
beings, right? So we go from puberty, our hormones are crazy, and then maybe pregnancy for some, and then postpartum, our brains were designed to take care of and give, and take care of these other beings and keep them alive and safe. And then they start to grow up, and then our bodies change, and then we recalibrate again, and we start to have realized that we need to take care of our own selves then, you know? So it's this understanding that there is physiological change happening. It's not just in your head and it's not just something you've heard about or you're not going crazy. This is real. And I definitely encourage you to get support and ask for help because it is really
Mm.
an important time to know that you're not alone, that all women are going through this, right? The women are going through this transition and now there's finally more research coming out. I mean, still slow, but there's more awareness at least. So we understand a little bit more in how to help. And then there are like dietary changes and lifestyle shifts that can make this a little bit easier. You know, there will still be very deep dips and very high highs and everything in between, the chaos. But it is important to, I would say, reach out for help, stay physically active, and know that you're not alone. I think that's really important. I get a lot of people come to me, they're like, I thought I was going crazy and my labs all look normal. Nobody could tell me what's happening. My doctors want to put me on antidepressants and this one wants to give me sleeping pill. But you know, it's just about getting help from different sources, I think can really be helpful. And just looking at your symptoms, right? Start tracking your symptoms, start taking notes of what's happening, listening to your body, because these are signs. Our bodies, the symptoms aren't just random, right? They're really giving us signs of what we need to change. Something needs to shift. And it's not always bad, but it is change, like you said, and it's difficult to recognize that sometimes. So track your sleep, track your symptoms, bring it to your doctors, talk to people. I think that's important.
Yeah, and I wanna add to that, like, to really prioritize yourself. I think this is an invitation for us as women to prioritize our sense of nourishment. Like, what feels nourishing to you? And this is might change day to day, but
Yeah.
to lean into that hardcore. I do wanna ask you a question about supplements. I know this might be too general, just curiosity. Like, I know we've got food, we've got lifestyle, we have movement, we have rest. Are there blanket supplements you recommend during this time, or is it just too individualized?
Supplements are tricky, and, I do think that we're getting so much from social media and hearing so many things, but I will say that I do love supplements. I do take them. I have quite a stack for sure, but they are definitely individualized. There's certain ones that I do recommend for sure, and based on your labs, I would say make sure you're getting labs done regularly from your doctor just to check your vitamin D levels and your blood sugar levels and your cholesterol, things like that. Your full thyroid and iron is really important. So getting those checked and then supplementing as needed based on those. I do think magnesium is one that I can say that a lot of people can really benefit from, especially during this transition, because we do become depleted in it with those high stress states and we're not getting enough from our food supply anymore. And it does help with sleep and your resilience and your reaction and all the good things. So I do love magnesium. I need magnesium glycinate. And then vitamin D if you are low, but you do need to get it checked. And creatine is one that I really do love to if you are working out and building muscle, there's so much research on it now. So, I mean, it's like one of the most researched supplements out there. So if you are building muscle, it is really good for cognition and brain health too. But omega 3s are also really good to get from the diet also. So fatty fish and things like that. But if you aren't getting enough of that and you do feel like you have inflammation in your body, that can be a good one. But again, check with your doctor. And also, if you are taking medications, be sure not to take anything without talking to a doctor because they just can interact sometimes. But supplements are meant to enhance, right? They're not meant to replace, or they're just meant to sort of support you in and sort of propel you a little faster sometimes in terms of like getting to where you want to go. But they're all so different and they're all really, some of them are quite necessary and I do really believe in them. But think first about, are you eating consistently? Are you getting enough food and balanced nutrition, right? Are your meals balanced? How is your sleep? Do you have disrupted sleep? Are you watching TV? Are you staying up till 1 a.m.? Things like that. How's your energy? Where are the gaps? Kind of thing. And then,
Mm.
talk to a doctor or a specialist or a nutritionist about it. Was that
Oh my gosh.
helpful? I hope.
Sam, that this has been so helpful. Like so helpful. I have so many notes. I have no doubt that everyone who listens to this conversation is going to be like, "Okay, I got this." Or at least I know that I'm not alone. And I do know that you offer a support
Yeah.
group. If you can share some information about your support group and then also where people can find you and, just to connect with you and if they have questions to dive deeper with you.
Yes, thank you. You can find me on Instagram at Healthy to the Core NYC. And it's the same for my website, healthytothecoreny.com. And I run a core reset women's group, and it's been incredible. I mean, it's just a group of women. We meet once a week live, and the support and the network, the way the community is just thriving and great. And we, do a lot of nutrition and gut health, and we talk about supplements and all the things. We go through all the things on how to eat. And it does help women feel less alone for sure. It's not about restriction, there's no diets. It's about learning how to kind of tune into your body and understand what's going on with you and listening to yourself and trusting your own body instead of, the outside, the external noise that we can sometimes be influenced by. So,
I have one
yeah.
last question for you. This is a fun one. It's the last question I ask all of my guests. And that is if it were your last meal on earth in this moment right now, and I were to hand you a plate of food, what would you choose?
Oh my gosh, that's a great one. I would probably have like a big bowl of like noodle soup curry ramen kind of thing. I love that. Just like a hearty, warming dish of just like all the like veggies and soupy warmth and comfort. I feel like that's the most
Mhm.
comforting thing to me. And I think food is can be really nourishing in that way. What about you? What's yours?
Oh my gosh,
What's
I
yours?
love. Nobody asks me that in return, but I always joke that it changes. Like my daughter and I have a game that we play and she's like, "What's your favorite food now, mommy?" And in this moment right now, there is this recipe for slow cooked lamb shoulder, and the lamb shoulder I'm going to have to try to find it so I can link to it, but the lamb shoulder is just pocketed with tons of garlic and rosemary, and it like falls apart. And I would want a spread of that with like homemade pita bread. Even though I can't eat gluten, I would eat it because I would be dying. So it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
And I would want all of the Mediterranean, like tomato salad and tzatziki and like all of these, just a Mediterranean spread with that fall apart lamb shoulder as the centerpiece. In this moment, that's what I would choose.
Oh my god, that sounds like my dream meal too. I'll be there with you. That's again, I love it. But
Thank
your
you
book, I have
so
to say, it's
much.
like so life-changing and amazing and inspiring, and I love it's like the way I practice too. It's like getting connection to and I really try to work with my clients, like, get back in the kitchen and find it, like, comforting again because a lot of us have had such struggles with food growing up or just, body image, and there's so much out there that's impacting the way we see food now, so I just try to really help people to that's why I think your book is so important for women and I give
Mm.
to my clients and I think that it's like just such a gift. So thank you for creating that and bringing it to the world.
Oh, that means so
You're
much. Thank you so much, Sam. It has been such a joy speaking with you.
there. You too. Thank you for everything.
Thank you so much for listening. If this work resonates with you in any way, you can support it by leaving a review or comment or sharing it with friends. Also, you can sign up for the newsletter, Mind, Body, Spirit, Food. And by becoming a paid member for just $5 a month, you help fund this entire project. Thank you so much to all of you who are already subscribed, especially to those paid subscribers. This work could not happen without you. I'm Nicki Sizemore, and as always, remember to nourish yourself with intention and love.